Hi folks, John Dunn here, RPG freelancer, publisher behind Melia. I'm up here today at Immortals with Mikey.
What is up, John? What a marvelous evening we have on our hands.
We are, but things are feeling a little dark and foreboding and crashing.
Clumsy, and very clumsy. So with that being said, what is this cursed book you brought us today?
Well, and it is kind of cursed.
Okay.
This is Symbaroum, Davokar Awakens. Now,
put it away.
We've talked about the Symbaroum setting before, if you remember that.
Yeah, because
and it was very much a Swedish, I believe, dark fantasy.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Well, Davokar Awakens is the latest adventure for Symbaroum, and it is the sixth and final adventure in the Throne of Thorns campaign. Now, I hear Throne of Thorns, and I think of kind of the Iron Throne from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And honestly, that cover image there, a little bit reminds me
especially
of
the
that.
top.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if that's deliberate or not, but it's...
I would hope there's some inspiration.
I suspect that it might not just be a coincidence. This is by Matthias Johnson Hake, who was one of the guys behind Symbaroum, the core book too.
Okay.
So he stuck with the project throughout that. And this is, like I said, the sixth book in this saga, and this is very much an apocalyptic, world-changing adventure. Now, it is the sixth book in an adventure series. It's intended to wrap up a campaign, but as I was reading through it, and as clearly the authors intended, I think this could very much just be an adventure that you could start on, because I think you could have a lot of fun just trying to prevent this apocalypse from happening, even if you're not fully informed on what has come before. So, talking it out, just the view from the top, it says Davokar Awakens. If you remember, way back when we first talked about Symbaroum, I mentioned Davokar Forest as this kind of unexplored region where, the characters could go out and see what was happening, encounter the monsters and the horrors. Well, things have gone badly there. The forest has awakened, and it's full of dark creatures and a whole lot of undead, right? So it awoke, and maybe we'd like to put it back to sleep, right?
Maybe.
And the Symbaroum Empire, which was the big bad that had existed in ages past, has kind of come back, and they're undead. So again, bad things are happening.
Yeah.
And the PCs need to find a way to stop it, right? So the first chunk of this book, first chapters of this book is called Game of Power, and it provides you the background, basically what has come before, what's going on, and it discusses the different factions that are at play here and what actions they might be taking to try to prevent this basically coming apocalypse. Chapter 2, it's called Besieged by Darkness. It introduces several scenes that you might present over the course of the adventure as the PCs are exploring, and it talks about the defenders, who are basically, the human-ish factions, and the attackers that include trolls, undead, and at least surprisingly to me, lemmings. Lemmings, yes.
What are lemmings?
Oh, surely you know about lemmings. Okay. Lemmings are a rodent species that live their lives, and then at some point, an entire massive pack of thousands of lemmings will decide, it's time for all of us to die and run off a cliff.
Okay.
Right.
So,
this is a real life thing.
And this is just their, psychosis?
That's their life cycles.
Okay.
And nobody quite understands the how or the why of it, or at least I've never seen anyone that could explain the how or why of it. But yeah, when lemmings need to die, they just die in mass.
Well, hey, you learn something new every day. So.
And one of the monsters that shows up at this point in the book are lemmings.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that, because halfway through the fight, they'll just...
Well, bad things happen when these lemmings die.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
of course. Simple.
Chapter 3 kind of introduces the adventure. This is Act 1 of the 3 acts in this adventure. And it gives you the full setup, the timeline, the regional backgrounds, and a detailed adventure breakdown. And again, like I mentioned, there's notes in here on how to play through this if you haven't played any of the Legion adventures. And I think they're really solid and do make this stand on its own quite effectively. It also gives you some suggestions for the types of characters that you might want to bring into this campaign, and additional background information on, some of the moving pieces, because there are a lot of things going on here all at once. After that, Chapter 4 is game opening, and that kind of sets the tone and starts Act 2. The characters here need to defend a bridge against a horde of abominations. These are the darkness-empowered entities. And then they get to visit Thistlehold. And again, if you recall back when we first reviewed the campaign setting, Thistlehold was kind of this town where the adventurers might get to start off at. So again, we're completing the circle here because we're coming back to Thistlehold, and the characters need to desperately try to protect it and see what resources they can scramble to find here. I think coming back to this base of operations late in the storyline is a really cool kind of cyclic effect here.
Full circle moment.
Exactly. The next chapter, chapter 5, is called Journeys into Darkness, and this is when the characters travel through Davokar, and there's a number of events and scenes here that set that tone linked to it. Chapter 6 is called Amble Seba. This is a lost, ruined city with just some horrifying magical secrets and the ties to the powers of the ancient Symbaroum Empire. Chapter 7 is Landfall, where the characters can encounter a lost, completely isolated human civilization and possibly learn the secrets of archmagic. And then Chapter 8 launches us into Act 3, starts with an introduction, and then the characters travel to Symbar and learn what happened while they were off exploring these other distant places. Chapter 9 is Symbar. This is the undead city itself, and that city, because it's undead, is kind of rebuilding itself. And here we have the armies of different factions that are preparing to engage in a final battle against the undead horde. Again, we talk about their motivations, and the characters have an opportunity to interact with both of these. It's very nicely set up kind of as a sandbox here. Chapter 10 is Events in Symbar, and we cover the scenes, locations, and factions of Symbar. And then finally, Chapter 11 is The Aftermath, and discusses what the world of Symbaroum might look like in the aftermath of everything that has happened. In here, we also have nice reproductions of the maps and handouts presented throughout. This is another gorgeous book from Free League, in the same vein as the other stuff we've seen from Symbaroum. If you flip through it, you're going to see some amazing art. And if we get into that Aftermath chapter, just some really cool looking maps and handouts that pop off the pages here.
Let's look at that detail.
It's about 200 pages. It's $40, full color, hardcover. Got copies up here at the shelf at Immortals Inc. or available at immortalsinc.com.
Well said, John. Check out our first video if you haven't, and it's on the shelf. Come check it out.
Maybe drop a link to that one in the
Absolutely.
comments. Till next time, folks, good gaming.